welcome to creating a psychological safe environment. This project has been, I feel like, a whole year, don't you think, Greta?
Yes,
Yeah.
we've been working. I think we started thinking about this right after Easty a year ago, or right after our session in PBL.
Yeah, and
So
I think too, it was kind of started with those people you can share anything with, right? Like they won't judge you, they won't think anything different of you, and you can just share like your craziest or your worst thought, and those people are okay with you. And I was just thinking, like, how do we create these environments? How do these people come across as you can tell them anything and they're not going to judge you? Because I want to be that person, right?
yes, exactly. And how do we create that in our classrooms? Yes, how can we help our kids to feel really safe and become their best version of themselves? So it's not
Yeah.
just about us, but also about how we make feel how we make others feel.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point because after COVID, I kind of saw maybe some classrooms not have this psychological safe environment. And I heard some mean kids and they would call each other like stupid or whatever. And I'm like, no, this can't happen because that really does harm learning when we don't have these safe spaces.
Yes, and I don't know, like here in Argentina, my school is bilingual. Kids go to school like from 8 in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon. And not being able to go to school, like it's been like, I don't know, a lot. And when we came back, like we spent a whole year like remote, and the following year it was hybrid. Kids went to school like uh 2-3 times a week, and then in August we were able to go full time. So we spent like a year and a half outside, our regular school. And when we went back, we had lots of issues, even with recess. Kids forgot how to play properly, how to treat each other properly. So I've always believed in safe learning environments, but I think after COVID, it's more than ever, we need to work on this.
Yeah, so in the chat, I'm going to share the slide. So feel free to follow along with us throughout this session. And please add to the conversation. Use the chat to engage and to offer advice as well, because there's so many different ideas and thoughts when it comes to creating a psychological safe. I mean, I didn't even realize how much it really did include. And some people just make it seem so natural, but really there is a lot behind it.
Yes, and it's not just, classroom rules. No, it's much more than that.
Yeah, so if you don't know us, my name is Stephanie Howe, and I'm an instructional technology coach in Ohio.
And sorry, I'm a learning innovation leader from Buenos Aires, Argentina. You might be wondering how we met. Argentina, US. Okay, it's Twitter, our personal learning network. And well, we'll be talking about our personal learning networks right now, right?
Yeah. And so if you aren't, go ahead and follow us on Twitter and connect with us. I mean, we're on, I think, all the social media platforms. I don't, there's
Yes.
right now. So just send me a direct message if you need me.
I can't keep up. Like
Me either.
Threads, Blue Sky, and it's like I need Twitter to be like the good old days of Twitter. I love Twitter,
Yeah.
but too many.
Yes, yes. Okay, so when it comes to safety, we practice fire drills, tornado drills, these lockdown drills at the start of the school year. But what I came to realize is we don't really practice this psychological safety. But fire drills, we know what to do if there's an emergency. Tornado drills, lockdown drills, all of these other safety drills, we have a procedure in place. But when it came to psychological safety, there wasn't really this procedure or this training that might be done for teachers. And I just kind of bothered me when I was thinking about this because I think our psychological safety is just as, if not more important than some of these drills that might
Yes, couldn't agree more.
yeah. And that just really bothered me when I was just kind of thinking about this. Like, well, we do fire drills and tornado drills like once a month. Why is there nothing in place for these psychological drills when our students can't get along, when they are dealing or they won't speak up in class? Like, there's not this training that happens that's happening every single day in classrooms. That is really scary. Or even teachers sharing in a professional development session, right? Or speaking up to share ideas with a colleague. There's some
Yes.
that I don't feel safe bringing up certain issues to. And
A staff meeting could be, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, and
we
so
are
go ahead.
sorry. No, that sometimes we are vulnerable when we are sharing an idea, our feelings. So it's so important to feel safe, to
It
open
really
up.
is. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so my story starts in Sydney, Australia at the Google Innovator Academy. I was pretty quiet before 2019. I was on Twitter, but I was just kind of like a lurker. Like I was just getting ideas and seeing who was out there, but I was like, oh, they won't think my ideas are great. Like I'm not that great of a person. I don't have any good ideas. So I was just kind of a lurker. And I decided to apply for Google Innovator. And I applied to the Sydney, Australia one because I was like, I'm not going to get in, but I'm going to apply anyway. And then at 2 a.m., I start getting all these chats. And I was like, what is going on with my phone right now? It will not stop vibrating and it is just going crazy. Come to find out, I was accepted to the Sydney, Australia Innovator Academy. And I, again, was shy. And I had to be like, how am I going to tell my boss I've been accepted to this thing in Sydney, Australia, and I'm going to need a couple of days off work? Like, I'll pay for it. I just don't know how to get there. Right. And so, like, all of this is going through my mind. Like, I'm not good enough to go to Sydney, Australia. Google, what? And like, I'm just like having a freak out moment. And when I got to Google, I am so glad I went because I was freaking out. And Leslie Altman, she is amazing. She's the Google Nana. And she spent a lot of time in the bathroom. And I didn't know that during Sydney 19, but she was like dealing with the same feelings I was of that imposter syndrome, feeling like you're not good enough. And it was just so funny to hear her story because she's like, yeah, I had to go to the bathroom a lot. I didn't even have to go to the bathroom. I just had to go hide because I just felt so overwhelmed and not good enough. And when you're in a room where you don't feel good enough, but people want to hear your ideas, you start to learn this thing of psychological safety. You start to learn that people really do value you. You feel seen, you feel heard. And in that moment, I started to transform to the person I am today. And so before this experience, I would sit quiet in meetings. I would listen. I wouldn't do much. I would just kind of sit there and be like, like I was a rule follower. And then after Google Innovator, I learned that my ideas matter. And I started to take my learning from that surface level to a whole nother DOK level where now I was justifying, now I was creating, now I was doing all of these higher level thinking skills because of this experience I had at Google. And I think it's the same for our kids in our classroom. When we just don't allow them to fail, when we don't let them feel safe to share, they're going to perform at that surface level area. When we create an environment that they are allowed to fail forward, they are allowed to share, they are allowed to try new things, they're going to go deeper in DOK. They're going to go deeper in Bloom's taxonomy. They're going to start creating, they're going to start sharing, they're going to start failing forward. And that's what's really exciting.
Wow, I love your story. I kind of relate to that. I'm really shy too, and I lack confidence. And it's my PLN and especially the EAST community leaders crew that helped me believe in myself and start sharing. I've been on social media and sharing for years, and I've always have, like I want to share a lot more than what I actually do, but it's like these thoughts that, no, this is not good. Oh no, I'm gonna, put my foot into this. So I I don't know. I always say, like, I tweet 1% of what I really think. Um, and it's after I joined the ISTE Community Leaders Program that some amazing colleagues started believing in myself, and helped me, empowered me, inspired me to. And I love that TED talk that talks like every kid needs a champion by Rita Pearson. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's one of my favorite. Okay, grown-ups need a champion too. And all of you, because you are included there, Steph, are my champions.
Oh.
And it's like, hadn't been for all of you, I wouldn't be sitting here doing this webinar with you today. So it's when I had all my colleagues supporting me and pushing me out of my comfort zone, like, come on, Greta, and you can do this, and helping me sometimes going over ideas together. But that little push that I needed was thanks to all of them and you. So
yeah, it is about finding that community, right? Like finding that people that will champion for you, will advocate for you, and just support you along the way.
Yeah, totally. So we need to be champions for our students too,
Yes.
and for our teachers.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we want student agency, okay? We want students to feel safe sharing their ideas, taking risk, and making mistakes. And these are the brains, like the speech bubbles that I want to hear out loud in my classroom. We want to hear kids saying, I have an idea, or I've made a mistake, or this might not work, but they're willing to try. That I need help and I have a different view. All of these things can create, and once you start hearing these words, you've created that safe space in your classroom. And
Absolutely.
yeah, AJ's been kind of my he's my 3-year-old that I use him to test all my ideas with. And lately his thing is I have an idea. Constantly, Mom, I have an idea. And I'm like, oh God, what is it? Because usually it involves mud, soap, and water, and then my kitchen's a huge mess. But again, it's creating that safe space where it's like, okay, what's your idea and what else, or whatever. But it's just been kind of fun hearing him too, as I've been working on this psychological safe thing.
Yes, we are AJ fans.
Yes. So
So
psychological safety does not just happen. Okay.
yes, we need to build that. We need
I
to
wish it
work for
did.
that.
Yeah.
It's not magic, right?
I wish
So
it
how
was
can we do
magic,
that?
right? Yeah. It's not, it does take work, it takes time, it takes failing at it too. Like there's days where I'm not safe. I'm not a safe person to tell things to because I might snap or different things like that. So just keep that in mind that it doesn't just happen. We wish it did, but it doesn't.
No, and it's hard work, but the good thing is we have some ideas and steps for you to start creating your psychologically safe learning environment. We've organized them in 7 steps. Um, I don't know. Should we go all over them quickly or just start one by one? What do you think, Steph?
Yeah, we're going to cover all 7 of these throughout the session today. Okay. And feel free to pause, rewind as you need to. Also,
Yes, and also share
good.
your ideas because
Yeah.
we love learning from you all. So probably you have an idea or I don't know, you do something differently, please share it. Reach out to us because we are always learning.
Yeah, so make sure you share those ideas with us either through email or in social media, one of the platforms that you're on. But it starts with these 7 steps, okay? And we're going to kind of talk about each of these 7 steps. Now, since this is recorded and on our own platform, we're going to be able to go into more detail. So this might
Yes.
go a little bit over an hour, just to warn you. But we're going to be able to talk about all of these. But again, if you're feeling overwhelmed, pause it, try one of those ideas and come back. You don't need to get you don't need to do all 7 right away. Try one, get good at it, and come back, and that's okay.
Yes, and always remember that this takes time and it's not going to happen overnight. It's something you build, you work towards, and you build.
Okay, so the first one is just providing clarity. And when you're providing clarity, it's just kind of going over the details. And I was reading about a study, and it was about people who donated money, which I thought was really interesting. So the people that got an explanation just about donating money that was like quick and basically kind of to the point. It didn't really talk about where to park, what to do, or that. It just kind of said, here it is, here's the date, here's the time, here's what you do. That group of people had less people donate to compared to the people that had some clarity, which I thought was insane, okay? Because I was like, oh my gosh, they just got a paragraph of information, and these people didn't donate as much. It's the people that received the long paragraph of information, the letter that was sent to them that told them where to go, so where to park, what to do when they got there, what door to enter. There was a picture of the map. There was all of this information. There was all of this clarity. That group of people donated more money to this charity, which I thought was insane.
Yes.
But it's true for our kids, right?
Yes, we need to provide, clear expectations, what we expect, what we want them. And also, I think we need to help them set their own goals, so that they can start, becoming their own, guiding their own learning, but knowing where they are going. So that starts with clarity.
Yeah. So the Wonder Wall is one strategy to kind of help you. So I love these 3 questions. They're from John Hattie. What are we learning? Why are we learning it? And when will I know that I've learned it? And then down here is just how the students are going to be doing those different tasks. Very easy for you as a teacher to kind of forget to provide clarity, but with this template, you're able to go in and answer each of these questions and how students will be doing it. You might do it by a week, or if you're like me, I really like to break it down by the minutes for that class period. And then I can kind of tell students what's next, what's happening tomorrow. So that way they just have a heads up. You can do this digitally, or you could create a space in your classroom that has these 3 questions. You could also kind of decide where you want to place this in your classroom, or maybe you want to just post it digitally for your students, but providing that clarity of what are we learning, why are we learning it, when and how will we be learning it is super important for your learners.
Yes. So this is an agile framework we implemented when working in groups, and it's fantastic because it helps kids agree on everything they will need in order to work as a group. So we start with the definition of fun. Definition of fun means what we need as a group in order to learn, work, but also have a good time. So they agree on, okay, we can listen to music while we work. We need to respect each other. We need to listen to each other. So they come to they agree on a common definition of fun. And then once they decided what they need to work, to work properly, they need to decide the definition of done, which means what they need or when they will all feel their work is done. Sometimes what is done for me, it's not what's done for others. So agreeing on that is key in order to, start working on a project. And then they come up with the stories, or they would be like the learning goals, what they need to work on. And finally, they also complete the celebration criteria, which would be like the criteria we expect for them to succeed. So this is a Canva template, but we use it on Jamboard. So they use sticky notes in order to complete all the different columns. Once this is what we call the learning process. Once this is decided, kids start working on the project. Once they know what they will be creating, oh, there's a Jamboard. Thank you, Steph.
Yep.
So as you see, here are my students' sticky notes. This is an example we've done. So they decided they would need to help others in order to have fun, or I don't know if you can make it a bit bigger because I cannot read the sticky notes.
I need edit access, I think.
Okay, doesn't matter.
Copy. There we go.
There we go. Thank you. So, for example, an example of definition of done would be we have all submitted the file or the document in the right assignment slot on Schoology. We use Schoology at school. Stories, for example, this is a myth they had to write, and then they had to create either a podcast, a video with what they had written. So they had to plan the myth, they had to write the myth. So they had many different steps. Those were the stories. And then, of course, the celebration criteria, yes? We include all the elements of a myth. We pay close attention to text organization. We use rich vocabulary. Okay, so those were the things they needed to take into account. And of course, this is all linked, like definition of done, story, celebration criteria. So once they analyze that and they decide what they will create, they start working on the project. And that would be the next frame there. No. Oops.
Somewhere.
Yeah. Let's go back to the Canva template.
Okay. There we go.
There. Yes. So the learning progress is they, again, start working with sticky notes, and they break down all the things they need to do. They break them down into sticky notes and small steps. So once they are working on them, they move it onto the busy column. And once it's done, they move it onto the done. So I have access to each of my students' groups, Jamboard, and I can monitor where they are, what they are working on. And we have these reviews or mini conferences where I get together with each group, and we call them sprint reviews or check-ins. So we analyze, okay, what have been your challenges so far as a group? What are you proud of? And what is our GPS? What do we need to focus on as we move forward in the project? So each of these reviews is super powerful because we have like really deep and meaningful conversations, not just about the learning, but also about what's happening with them as a group. So not only they are working on the content, but they are also developing social, emotional, and critical thinking skills as they move along the project. So once they finish and they have their final product, they don't need my feedback because they had my feedback all throughout the process. Okay, that is a slide we use to set learning goals, like personal learning goals at the beginning. So each kid shares their learning goals, and then they do a final reflection. I sometimes use this, and I sometimes use the glows and grows we will be talking about later. So it's different strategies, but throughout the whole process, getting kids reflect not just on their learning, but also on themselves as learners.
Yeah, and Greta also wrote an article for ISTE on this topic, so I'm going to throw that article into the chat in case you're interested in learning more about setting this up in your own classroom and creating that mindset for your learners. And you can see here she's got those examples where it's easier to kind of read and follow along.
Yes, and you have all the links there, so feel free to use them. I've shared some templates, and of course, reach out if you want some, want me to share my experience, or you need some advice or help.
And then this next one is one that I use often when it comes to professional learning. And it's really helped teachers feel safe coming to PD. And so with this, you're able to kind of see here that I create the outline of like what we'll be doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and any material that person might need. And then as we're doing the PD, I just come over here and I'm able to change this from in progress to like not started or finished. And then teachers know exactly where they are in case they needed to step out to take a phone call or who knows what else they needed to do. I'm able to link everything right on this document. So then they're able to see any material that's needed and then they can just click and follow along. I've used this in classrooms as well, and it works out really well too. So you can come in, you can put your norms or your focus for the day, how much time it's going to take, what it is, why, and then you could even use the status page for your students so they can let you know if they finished or where they're at, kind of like a check mark bar as well. But this is a great way to just kind of keep focus on professional development, but also in the classroom too, kind of like a checklist to help students know exactly what the expectation is. And now we're talking about building that self-awareness. So when we're building self-awareness, we want to be aware of ourselves. And I think this psychological safe environment started back when I learned about True Colors. And so True Colors is an amazing resource if you haven't seen it yet. Stephanie Rothstein kind of introduced me to True Colors, and she has a website, Can We Talk EDU. So I'm going to throw that link in the chat as well. And on this website, she has an entire YouTube video that I highly suggest you watch. And then it breaks it down into different colors. And so with these different colors, it has allowed me to become self-aware of myself. But now that I've really gotten to know who I am and how I respond to situations and what I'm motivated by, I can now start to understand how to respond to others. So for example, when a green person, because I'm gold, comes to me questioning me, I'm able to kind of just take a moment and go, they're not questioning me because of who I am. They're questioning me because they want to know more about this. And there's nothing I did wrong. They just want to know more. So I can kind of pause and remember that about myself, but also about that person. Because as a gold, I am like, I've followed the rules. I did all the right things. I did all the steps. But when it comes to a green person, they might just need a little bit more clarification. And so knowing these different personalities have really helped grow myself to know myself better, but also just to know others. So she has this entire resource on her website. And then what I've done is I've taken her resource and I have just kind of used that wonder wall approach for back to school. So creating this with my students, they come back maybe on Monday, we welcome back. Tuesday, we do split days. So we do staggered starts. So some students start on like a Monday, other students start on a Tuesday, but we're all back together on Wednesday. And so because of that, I just put virtual day on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, the students take the test. And then there's this presentation with Pear Deck that Stephanie created. That is amazing that this walks through all the different colors. So sometimes I will do that whole group with my students and we'll talk about all those different colors. Other times they'll just quickly go through this presentation because she added voiceovers to the presentation. And then what happens is students work with their group and they will meet with their group. And when they meet with their group, they will be with the same colors. So all the oranges are together, all of the greens, all of the blues, all of the yellows, which Stephanie kind of gave me this idea in her video. And it's just, she said, one, it's fun to observe how all the different colors work together or the same colors because you've got your goals who are like very much so like, here's the rubric, we've got to get it done. They get it done. The blues are building relationships, talking about summer, talking about what they've kind of done this past week or weekend. Your greens are asking each other questions. And then your oranges are just having a lot of fun and they're going to wing it like last minute. And so she's like, you just have to observe it. And then they share their presentation together. She also has this About Me slide activity where students can come in and express themselves by their color and explain who they are by either adding their phone or a water bottle or one of these notebooks, different activities there. So this is just a great week or great way to start your week and just to get to know your students and different personalities coming into your classroom.
Yes, I love that. And it's so important to, help kids become aware of their personality traits and start having these conversations. So I love this. And here we have traffic light reflection. It's done on Jamboard. It's for kids, to reflect on themselves as learners. It can also be it can be done with content. I mean, it can be done with with anything, but I like particularly doing this when we, need to reflect on how well we are getting organized, how are we dealing with, with our to-do list, setting priorities. So I ask them what habits they are doing that they should stop. Like, I don't know, I get home from school, I start playing PlayStation games, and I don't do my homework until 11 p.m. Okay, so what things you should stop doing in order to, have a better time after school and at school? Because sometimes they have so much to do. Not like they have so much to do, like they do so much that they don't set their priorities properly, and this becomes overwhelming. So understanding who they are as learners is key. So what another, like the yellow column, would be what things they are doing they should keep doing. Like, okay, I check the calendar every day, I check my pending stuff. Okay, that's a good habit, so keep on doing that. And the last one is, okay, what things should I start focusing on? What things should I start doing in order to become a better learner? So this traffic light reflection, I think it's great for kids to become self-aware of themselves, of their learning habits or skills. But it's good to have it and go back to it often, because sometimes we make them talk about what they can do or they can't do, and we forget. So going back to this and getting them reflect, oh, look, I couldn't do this at the beginning, but now I'm doing it very well, and I have grown and become a better learner. So those conversations are also important to reinforce what they are doing and start also building trust between you and your students. And yeah, that would be the
And this is great too to do with adults. There's so many teachers that I work with that feel overwhelmed by new initiatives that maybe the district is like encouraging, or different strategies that might be higher impact than something that they're currently doing. And so to me, it's just like, okay, what can we stop doing that is taking up some time that might not be worth your time, right? What can we stop doing? What is a routine? And I don't know, but Kat got me into these cards. They're amazing. And it's called Create Brave. And they're by a couple of our friends. So these cards, and one of them was super interesting to me because one of the cards that I got, it was talking about what routines can you stop doing that are no longer benefiting you? And I had to pause and I had to think, like, what is it that we do just to do? Right? Like, yeah, there's so many things, right? But they're beautiful cards. They make you reflect, and they're going to make you a better human being. And it just, again, it made me just kind of pause for a moment. And I was like, why do I do that morning routine? It's pointless. I've done it for years, but there's no longer a need for it. So I think that's important to share with teachers. What can we stop doing that's no longer needed, or that no longer has a great value in your classroom? Or maybe it's that morning routine where you don't need to have coffee every morning or something. I don't know what it is for you. And then what is it that you need to keep doing? What is it that is still benefiting you, that is still making an impact in your life? And then what new things can you start doing that might be wanting to add? Like, for example, these cards. I need to start doing them daily because they are going to challenge me to think and get better.
Yeah, I need to get those cards. Sorry, let me go back 1 second to the traffic light. When doing group work, also getting the group reflect together on how they did as a group, what things they should stop doing or what they should keep doing, or what things they need to start doing. These conversations, not just about themselves as learners, but also, as a group, because collaboration, it's a key skill. So getting kids start reflecting on that is also very important. I need to get those cards.
Yeah, I just threw them in the chat.
Yeah.
For anybody that's interested in them. They're beautiful. So that's why I bought them. Kat's unboxing activity was gorgeous. And
Yes.
then, I read that one and it was like, I can't find it right now, but it was all about my morning, like my routines. And it was like, what can you stop doing that's no longer beneficial for you? And I
Yeah,
had a pause
and
and I
it's
was like, oh my gosh.
it's a question we should we should ask ourselves more often, because
Yeah.
sometimes we do things just because. And like, if we have, we are helping kids build self-awareness, but sometimes we forget about our own.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the last one, it's one of my favorites. It's also to get them reflect on themselves as learners. But this is a rock, paper, scissors reflection. Like the rock would be, which is the hardest part of being a learner for you, and what do you find difficulty in? Okay, for example, getting organized, checking my calendar, or getting home from school and, sit down and study. So each kid has different struggles, so helping them identify what they're struggling with is super important. And then the paper, what habits or strategies do you think should definitely be written down on paper to remember? Like, for example, Steph was just talking about this question we should ask ourselves: is this useful? Why am I doing this? Okay, maybe I should write that down so I don't forget to do it, and I incorporate that into my life. And finally, the scissors. What habits or attitudes do you feel should be cut out or removed from your life by the scissors? So many. But it's important, to help kids start working on these questions. It's, like working out. So reflection is also something you practice. So giving this space for kids, it's, I think, really important.
Yeah, this is very important to just kind of, again, what is difficult, what's our paper that we need to write down, and then what can we maybe remove. And I love this reflection. I've used it multiple times with kids because it's just so easy for them to think about and open up and share and think about, okay, what was really hard about this activity?
Yes. Yeah, and it can be done not just, okay, this one was prepared for them to think as learners, but it can be also used with content. There's so many possibilities, and kids love the rock, paper, scissors reflection.
And so now we're going to look over emotions.
Yeah, so we have prepared this Padlet packed with resources for you to create check-ins. It's so important to make a moment to check how our students are doing, how they are feeling. Sometimes, we don't have these conversations enough, and so many things are going on through our students' minds. So, oh, we need to update that link.
Yeah.
This is one I used, for example, to ask them. It's a simple one. I use it right at the beginning. Like, how do you feel about going back to school? Or how are you today? And they are funny, but it encourages everybody to start sharing. And you can use them in a Google form. You can use them as a whole class. So in the Padlet, we have lots of resources for you to create several ones. I don't know what's that. Those are Tara's bell ringers, I think. No?
Yeah, this one is otters, on a scale of otters.
Yes. Yes, and there you have Giphy, where you can get lots of gifts. Okay, these are Tara's bell ringers. You have activities for mostly every day, for kids to do right in the morning when they get to school. Social emotional mood. And for example, we've added auto draw. It's super simple, but I had an amazing story. I just told my kids one day, draw something that represents how you're feeling and share a little why you're feeling. And it was totally different from what we do every day, because we usually do the memes check-ins. And one kid drew a heart and he wrote some initials, and I was like, what's this? And it's a kid that I've been trying, to get to him since the very beginning of the school year. And he was so engaged, and it was such a different activity, because we had never done that before, that probably he felt, oh, there you have it, you're the best. He felt, empowered to share. So he came and said, do you know what the A plus B stand for? And I guess the B stood for his name, but the A was, so he was, A is my dad. He moved to another province, so I don't see him enough or often enough. And he's now here in the city, and he's picking me up today to go out. We have here in Argentina, we call tea time. I know it's your dinner time. It's like at 5 p.m. It's like a snack we do before dinner, and it's very common. And he was going to have tea with his dad. And I found out what was going on thanks to that drawing. So, giving those spaces for kids and also helping them feel safe enough to share that, because it changes everything.
Yeah, so just a lot of different ideas on that Padlet of ways that you can connect with your students and add to it. This is a Padlet that you can add your ideas and resources to. So we can start building out this bank of resources for check-ins. And so then emotions. So emotions can sometimes be difficult for students to explain. So they might just kind of say this top row, where they might say like, oh, I feel jealous or saddened or angry or mad. And that doesn't really get to what is really going on. And so sometimes I'll use this chart with kids. It depends on the grade level. Sometimes I'll just use like emojis if they're younger. And with this chart, I might say, okay, you're feeling anger, that's a feeling that you might be having. Which word from here really describes that anger? And maybe it's bitterness, or maybe it's they're annoyed. Well, those two things can be completely different feelings or different reasons why we're upset. And so just bringing it down to what is the feeling that they're having and breaking it down into frustration or impatient, that can help you know how to deal with that situation better. But sometimes we have to add these words into our students' vocabulary list in order for them to really share what's going on. Another idea is this thought log, and this was created by Tara Ruckman, this idea, and then I took her idea and made this little graphic. And she has been battling cancer for the past, I feel like, a year, and
Yeah.
it's been awful, right? And so her positivity and her I'm trying to think of like the words to say, but she has just been so positive and full of life throughout this entire process that I was like, what is your secret? And so what she's been doing, because I would be a hot mess, very negative, you wouldn't want to be around me type of person. And
We are learning so much from her, because she
yeah.
keeps teaching us, even though she's going through a lot. She's like probably one of the most powerful teachers I've had the last year. You need to follow her. She's amazing.
Yeah, and so what she's been using is this thought log. And what she's a behavior coach, so you have to know that about her. But what she does is when she starts to get a negative thought, or she does this like once a day, she might write down what's happening. So what's that antecedent? What's happened before the behavior? And then she writes down any negative thoughts she had and how she can replace that with new positive thoughts. And then she's able to mark how she feels. So she can put that she's angry, that she's upset, any of those words she could do, or she could just draw an emoji. And then she can write what happened based on this response. And so this is a great way for our students to also just kind of process their feelings and thoughts of how they're dealing with different things. And again, they're able to come in and add what happened, what's those negative thoughts, and really reflect on what is going on in their world. And I just love this activity where you can pause for a moment and just reflect on what's going on, what's those negative thoughts, but what are some new thoughts that might be able to replace some of those negative things as well. Which then leads us to speaking up. So, providing opportunities for our students to share and speak up is really important as well. And so, when our students are trying to share their voice, we need to allow opportunities for them to do so. And one big mistake that I used to make when I was teaching or in professional learning now is I don't give enough wait time. And I would be like, I want your answers, and nobody was ready to speak. And when it comes to personality tests and temperaments, what I've started to realize is there's two different type of processors. Internal processors need time to process internally and think about what is happening. And they need to think inside before they speak up. Then you've got your people who will process externally. And that's kind of me. I just vomit as I'm processing my thoughts, and then they make sense to me. But a lot of times when I'm talking to someone that's an internal processor, they're like, oh my gosh, Stephanie, you're a lot. And I am a lot. But it's just like, okay, what do I need to do? I need to pause and I need to reflect and I need to think about how I'm going to go about this particular issue, right? And so, one way that we have done this is with discussion diamonds. It's kind of a think, pair, share activity, and it's also a jigsaw. So, you can have everybody do the same topic, or you can come in here and change these different activities to different articles. So, this was for PBIS, positive behavior. And you can provide links, videos, whatever you want the groups to learn from. They watch that resource and then they jot down in their box first or their post-it note. So if you don't have a box, have them do it on post-it notes. It doesn't have to be digital. And they just write down whatever they're thinking about that response. After that, every single group member will respond and share their idea. And I usually set a timer so every single person has a chance to speak up. Because a lot of times, what has been found is that if you're looking at the temperaments, our green temperament needs you to say their name and invite them into the conversation. So, a lot of times, you'll have your yellows who are, when it comes to temperaments, now this is different than that true colors test. When you have your yellows, these people are outgoing and they are willing to speak up. You usually cannot get them to stop talking because they just want to keep talking. Where your reds might take over the conversation as well because they have an opinion and they want you to know about it, where your greens are going to stay quiet and listen. And so oftentimes we need to provide opportunities for these students to speak up and invite them into the conversation. And so by making sure everybody has a chance to speak up allows that opportunity, but also teaching your students to call on each other and say, I'd like to hear your thoughts, Greta, or I'd like to hear your thoughts, Nicole, or whoever, really invites them into the conversation as well. So after they all listen to each other, they then come up with the best answer. So based on everybody's thoughts on the topic, they then put all of that together to create the very best response for their group consensus. And then they share either by creating some type of share out to the class, and they will present their final answer to the class. And you can kind of adapt this to how you want it. But what I love about that discussion diamond is you do hear from every single student in your class. Oh, you're muted.
No, I was saying that I love it, that I will try that with my class.
Yeah, it's a great way, again, just to make sure you hear from everybody. And then this next activity is called the Crazy Eights. And this really is something that they used at Google that really started to create that psychological safety within myself. So this one's kind of personal. And what happens is there's a timer, and every 30 seconds, you add a new idea to a box. So you spend 30 seconds on one box. And I've done this with my students when it comes to thinking about what they want to write about or a project they want to design, or for our FedEx Day, which is an activity where they pick something that they want to change in the world and how they're going to solve that. So they can sketch or they can write out their ideas in the box. And when the timer is up, they take a 10-second break before they go on to the next box. So 30 seconds in this box, they write, they sketch their ideas. Then they go over here, sketch their ideas here, here. Typically by this box, they get stuck. And so what happens is I just tell them, write your worst idea. And sometimes that worst idea is what is used with the project, because it's not really that bad of an idea, right? And sometimes it's what their partner is like, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. That's not your worst idea. And it creates that psychological safe space. So again, you could start off with 4 boxes if you think you need to with your students, or you could try all 8. But it's just a design sprint that gets your students thinking and gets them thinking outside the box. And then this final one is just 3 ways to process. We used this when we were virtual, but this could totally be changed for in person. But basically, there's 3 rooms in your classroom. One room, students are just working independently, alone on their Google Doc. There's no voice, and then cameras were off for this situation. Room 2, they might be writing, and it's a public document, but they're just typing to each other. There's no speaking, it's just typing on the same document. Where room 3, they are discussing. They're off mute and they are talking out loud their conversation, and one student might be taking notes. But this allows every single student to take the information that's presented and process it in a way that they need to. And then they come together at the end to share their final outcomes that either they did individually with a partner or with the smaller group.
They are great resources. I wish I had the idea of the breakout rooms during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Okay, so another really important thing to work with our students is to help them develop a growth mindset, taking risks, making mistakes. If we don't have this growth mindset, yes, this idea where we can learn from mistakes, it's very difficult for them to feel safe, because sometimes we are all stressed up because, oh no, I don't want to say this, I don't want to make a mistake, my teacher's going to get angry, I'm going to have a problem at home. So sometimes it's ideas we have in our head. So breaking, that fixed mindset and empowering a growth mindset, it's super important. We have some ideas. I love Carol Dweck's idea, where she believes that it's not that we don't know something, we don't know it yet. It's not that we can't do something, we can't do it yet. So just the power of yet, yes, that little word changes everything. So we need to slowly bring this into our classroom and help our students feel like it's not that they can't yet. So this is a simple activity where they just list the things they can already do and the things they can't do yet. So it's a simple way, a simple slide to get kids to start having this conversation. Another activity we have is, it's important to get them, understand the difference between a fixed and a growth mindset. So this slide has lots of stickers around, and kids just have to drag and drop depending on, is it a growth mindset, is it a fixed mindset? Because if we don't prepare our students for this, it's going to be very difficult, not just for their learning, but also in life. If we don't embrace mistakes, I think about the video from Brad Montag and the Failabration. Yes, it's important to start having this mindset.
And then this final one is just to help students kind of, again, get with that growth mindset of having them practice. So they would draw whatever the topic is, and this is before they even learn the topic. And then you actually show them where it's located on a map or what a butterfly actually looks like. So this can be a great way, again, where you hide the image, and then after you hide it, you reveal it, and then students can compare and contrast on whether or not it was the actual drawing. But starting those conversations of, okay, you had this part right and this part, and using some of that prior knowledge can help too.
Yes. And we really believe that feedback should not come at the end. Yes, if we want a psychologically safe environment, we need to believe in what we call feed forward, that, it's the teacher, they are having this conversation with students throughout the whole process. And sometimes not just the teacher, their classmates, yes, family, like getting the information they need in order to progress in their learning. So we call it feed forward, and we need to embrace a culture of feed forward. A great way is to get them, there we go, peer feedback. We use a tag protocol for peer feedback. The T stands for tell. Yes, you need to tell your classmate something you liked about their contribution. A stands for ask your classmate a question about their contribution. And G, you need to give your classmate an idea or a suggestion. So this protocol helps our students engage in meaningful conversation, not just great job. No, ask a question, give a suggestion, so that your classmate can do something with what you are telling them. So I teach English as a second language, so providing sentence starters helps a lot. So here you have different prompts for giving a suggestion, asking a question, or telling what you liked about the work. And then we have some examples of what it looks like in action. I have this embedded in my LMS so kids can go back to it all the time. We use it for, discussions. We use it for final outcome presentations. And we also use it for conversation in class, not just, written feedback, but also oral feedback. So tag is something that is really embedded in my class.
Yeah, and I love that you said that you use tag for multiple different things. It doesn't have to be written feedback. It can be, discussion or students working together to give that feedback. And what I found is, including adults, when we have a protocol in place, everything just seems to go better.
Yes.
When there's no protocol in place for giving feedback or feed forward or for doing some of these activities, that's when you might experience some unsafe conversations or for things turning out worse than you expected.
Yes, totally agree. Protocols provide a lot of safety in what we are doing, and especially, when we are giving opinion, because it's something that can be tricky, and kids need to learn that because it's tricky for grown-ups. So
yeah, and I think too we have to remember that if we use these protocols, one day our students probably won't need them. They're going to come natural. They came natural for me because I was one that had those sentence starters as I was giving student feedback. And as I started to get better and better at it, I no longer needed that resource. It's scaffolded away.
yes.
So it gets natural, but again, it takes time for it to get natural. And so put these procedures, put these scaffolds in your place to really help you. And then there's tuning. So this is another idea where students will present their project. There's no questions, no comments from the audience. They're just presenting their project. While they're presenting, they are then going to get feedback on their project. So those people are taking notes on what they liked and what they wonder. So what they like and what they wonder is kind of that improvement. Then those people are going to share that feedback. Now the presenters can't talk. It's just the feedback. And they're going to talk about things that they liked and things that they wondered. Okay, so maybe what do you wonder? And they had to think about what they liked. Then you reflect. So once you're given that feedback, the group goes back and they reflect on, okay, what was really beneficial feedback and what maybe wasn't. Okay, so they're kind of tuning in and out of that feedback. So this can be another protocol that's really helpful where they're kind of just, again, I wonder and I like that you did this. And then glows and grows. So Greta and I both love this. Where it came into my love is with this video feedback project. So the students created these videos and we did a gallery walk. And they had to come up with glows and grows. And with that glows and grows, they had to kind of use these sentence starters. Sentence starters really help make sure that the conversation stays kind. I really like how you added and then add the timestamp. So because it was a video project, they had to say like, I really like how you added the punchline at the 34-second mark. Or I really like how you added the author's title and description at the 1 minute and 42-second mark. Really providing that justification, that evidence from the timestamps made the students feel heard and feel seen. And so I think that's really important for your students when they're able to provide examples from other students' work or provide timestamps or provide this graphic from your infographic. Recite what that student did makes them, again, feel heard and feel seen. And then there's those grows where they need to improve. And it might be like, I wasn't sure about what was your intent when, or what were you hoping to achieve at? So again, I just had these cut out and then it was kind of like Post-it notes where they just went around and wrote a glow and grow on the students' work. Greta, how have you used glow and grows?
Okay, I use glows and grows more of like a self-reflection, but it's something like that it's ongoing throughout the whole school year. We start at the very beginning and kids reflect on what they are proud of, what their glows, what they think they are really good at. And then we talk about the growth, what they feel they need to improve or what they want to improve. So this is a conversation we have at the very kids do another glows and grows reflection. So at the end, we have like probably 7-8 different glows and grows reflection, and kids go back to it and they reflect on their whole school year. And what they notice most of the times is that what were their grows at the beginning of the year are now probably their glows at the end. And it keeps them focused on what they need to work on. It can be something connected to their learning, or it can be something connected, with themselves as learners, or connected to content. And then also, whenever we finish a final product, they get the rubric and they get their feedback with all the information, but they have a copy of the rubric and they reflect on, okay, this is a glow, this is a grow, depending where they feel they are, and they highlight. In green, their grows, in yellow, their glows. And that is like, this is part of their reflection they then do. We have some slide decks. I don't know if you have it handy, like the glows and grows.
I was trying to find it. Let me see if I can find it though. If not, we will add the link.
Yes.
In the
so usually they have the rubric and they have a slide deck where it has grows, glows, and they can write, they can create a poster, they can write a video or just an audio note. I give them choice because I really want them to focus on their glows and grows and not just like, oh no, I'm not good at writing. So they are struggling and that hinders their reflection process. So it's like a whole process we have throughout the year, and kids love it. It's funny because I have students last year I had in 2nd grade and I had them in 4th and I had them again in 6th, and they remember the glows and grows. We did them when they were really young in 2nd grade. We did them again when they were in 6th, and that when you see like the whole process and the way their reflection grows, and they were doing it in English, which is not their first language. So it's huge. So if you really create these spaces for reflection, it really grows on the kids.
Yeah, so make sure you add that piece in where you're giving your students feedback, but you're using some positive sentence stems to kind of help you along the way.
Yes, it's a whole thing of feed forward and feeling safe.
Yeah.
And of course,
yeah, bringing joy, which I feel like we should change once we found out about fail-abrations.
Yes, I agree. We have to update this session. It's important to bring moments of fun. Sometimes we think like, oh no, because we are having fun, we are not learning. And that little moment of fun is what helps the kid become, engage in your classroom, feel safe, and it will pave the way for the learning. So don't be afraid of bringing these little moments.
Yeah, and so
I don't know if I...
Oh, good.
No, it's okay.
And there's a video on Instagram that kind of brought us to this fail-abrations idea. And a couple ways that you can bring joy into your classroom is games. So this is a quick game. It's called Race to the Top. You can use it with behavior, or if your students are working well in a group, maybe you reward them for it. Okay, so you created a game as well. And so one of the activities that I recently just created is this group work challenge. And on this challenge, what if you had your students do these activities, and as they were doing this, for example, everyone in the group has the marker twice. So maybe they're working on whiteboards or butcher paper, and they all have the marker at least twice. So everybody is contributing to that group work. You celebrate that, and you have them roll a dice. And then once they roll a dice, they get to move that many spaces on their team's rod. Or they can knock some other team down. So if this team is at 4, you can have the team that rolled a 5 go, okay, they're going to go down 2, and we're going to go up 3. Okay, so that's how you can kind of play, is have the game like this. But again, having your students maybe participate in a group work and going over these different activities where maybe they correct someone's mistake, but it's kind. It's not nasty. It's not saying you're stupid. They do it really kindly. And so based on this challenge board and you catching them doing these different activities, they get to go up, roll the dice, and then you'll have like a winning team at the very end. It just kind of adds some fun and allows students to try. Also, games allow students to feel like it's okay to make mistakes. They're willing to dive in. They're willing to go deeper in that learning. But sometimes you have kids that are very competitive and they're not for losing. And so creating that environment that it's okay sometimes to lose, or you might not win every time. And then we have a really good friend, Christina. And what she does is
we love Christina.
We do. What she does is she makes these amazing playlists. So what if during a transition you have these Spotify playlists that Christine has already vetted for you? She goes through every single one of her songs to make sure it's appropriate for students to listen to. And what if you're just playing one of these songs at the start of the lesson? What a great way to, again, engage your learners and get some excitement going.
A few years ago, I used to have a moment on Fridays. We called it Singing Fridays. And I got my students, they could choose a song. They had to, share it with me first, just in case. And they would practice it. And they were a really musical class. So they would sing on Friday. And you should see, like, there was this kid who was really shy. And one day he started singing in front of everybody. He was like rocking his guitar. He had an amazing voice. And after that, he changed completely. He became like a more, confident student and a really good leader. So sometimes, it's that little thing that changes your student's life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I used to do them. They are now in university, and every now and then they message me on Instagram, and they remember our Singing Fridays. So we do Feel Good Friday now. A friend
Yeah.
of mine, Jules, came up with a name. So we play either a Bluecat, Kahoot, just a little game. It's the last 15, 20 minutes on a Friday, but kids really look forward to that moment. It's creating and bringing joy. School has to be fun. We can have fun and learn at the same time.
Yeah, and maybe you have a bubble party.
I want that.
Yeah, I have a bubble gun, and it has just brought so much joy into our classrooms. And I'll just come in and start blowing bubbles, and the kids are like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing!" So I think it was like $30 on Amazon. Totally worth the cost. It also potty trained AJ. So get yourself a bubble gun, and again, have those celebrations in your classroom.
Yes. It's so important, and it really makes a difference.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us. If you want more, we did write an article with ISTE that you're able to check out. It's called 7 Ways of Creating Those Psychological Safe for Students, which we went over each of those different areas. But if you just want to kind of see it in more detail, that is there for you. Also, we have a Padlet. So add your ideas, share your resources with us. This is your place where we get to grab from the community. So please take a moment to add to the Padlet and share your resources with us so we can learn alongside you as well.
Yes, please. And we would love to hear what you are doing to create psychologically safe environments in your classrooms.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. And if you do need anything, feel free to email us or reach out to us on social media.
Yes.